to ODI. And he is concerned about the condition of women, the destiny of women, particularly in the developing countries where
other languages. And then I took time off. We were made redundant in one of the publishing houses I was working where, and I did not, and I had time, and my family moved to Switzerland for a while. So I had the space in the flat and the time to think, and I decided, now this is the time to write what I actually wanted to write again, the novel about my experiences as an illegal immigrant. It's semi-autobiographical. Yeah, that is about 50% of what you will read about it is about me, but of course I created another character, I created different things. I wanted to write a story, not my story. So that is more authentic. This is the time to write. So that's it. As you can see, the Mayor of London, about former Mayor of London, sorry, Ken Livingstone, thinks is one of the best novels he has ever read, and everyone should Sunday afternoon to sit down and read. Whereas this is not, that's their consideration. So this sort of book will not fall into that category. And so, but in many countries, especially in India, of course, unfortunately, I cannot read the reviews, so I don't know what it is said. But in many countries, they're very positive reviews. In India, in Pakistan, it's out in 2 languages. In Indonesia, in Malaysia, so those parts of the country, the part of the world, it's actually doing well. It has not been translated into many African languages for obvious reasons, because it is big, and but my children's books are, because again I am the one doing it, so I can get them out in my children's books in African languages. But of course, this is, anything can happen along the line, and I will try and get it out in other languages. But for the time being, it has, it has been well received, mainly in India, in Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. These are the core countries. It's still selling in Japan, because I contacted the publishers recently. And of course, I feel deeply honored and privileged to be reading Luria in your language, but it's also been out in many other languages, including Sanskrit. So that is Amina. 36 languages. Was it difficult to get it published? Because it was published first by a publishing house in America. He happens to be my good friend. He happens to be an African. And we met at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and he just decided to give it a go. It is not a venture that has given me a lot of money. Actually, I spent a lot of money trying to get this out, because it is my political statement, as I said. So it is not the type of book that is a mass bestseller, but the joy of a writer is to be read. And the joy of Amina is that people want to read. People are, I get incredible letters and so on from people from villages saying how much they enjoy it. And that money can't buy. And I'm very grateful for that. So that is Amina. Do you want us to take a pause and take questions, or do you want me to continue with other books?
Yes, we continue. After the end of your talk, we can take up some questions.
Okay. So that is, let me now go through my other books, in case there are students out there who are wondering. Yes, I happen to be, I call it a blessing. What a lot of writers write in only one genre. And I have been lucky to, and blessed, and I'm grateful for that, to be published, to be gifted. Like this one I'm holding is The Adventures of Jamil. It's for 9 to 15 years old. I'll come back to it in a minute. And these two, as I shown you earlier, they are, for 2 to 6 years old. And then this is for 6 to 9 years old. Give us clearance, then we can sell or the rights or copies into mainland China. So that is the story of this one. It has been translated into Serbian, but of course the coronavirus has affected it badly, the publisher, and he said he was thinking about July or maybe October next year. So but it has been translated and it's there. These are the two languages so far. Talking about it, you probably noticed on my website that Amina has also been translated into Serbian. It has also been, and another book of mine has been translated into Serbian. So this is where we are with the illegal immigrant. Am I writing any other thing, or is there anything in the pipeline? Before you ask me, I will say yes and no. My illustrator has 1 or 2 stories with her. I have no idea when she will be able to illustrate them, but I'm not in a hurry also, because I am sometimes I'm just simply stretched, because at the moment I'm chasing about 5 African languages for my children's books. So maybe it will come, maybe not, I don't know. I noticed that I just hit, I'm, not writer's, maybe writer's block, as you would say, but, for 10 years, I have devoted myself to writing and publishing these books. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit exhausted. And it came at the wrong time, because just when I thought, okay, in February of this year, I tried to write a story that has been in my head for a long time. And actually the draft is somewhere, but I just couldn't. I sit down and blank. It happens, it happens. So I said, you know what? I stood up in February. I said to myself, Mohammed, I think that is it. You can't write anymore. Nothing wrong with that, at least for the time being. Draw a line and do other things with your life. And so it wasn't the virus, the coronavirus, that delayed it. And yes, I could have seized the opportunity, but I was a little bit ill, and not the corona, something else. And secondly, the anxiety, as you must have noticed, it was something new. There was all this, sorry to say, hysteria about you have to wash your hands 20 times a day. You have to wear masks. So by the time you go through all that, you have very little creative time otherwise. And you can't go out and meet people. I cannot sit in the cafe to write. I cannot do many things. And that definitely affected my creativity and other things. But, I'm back. We are where we are. We are working. I'm back at the college. And whether something will come up or not, I don't know. I cannot, tell you. And I hope I can write more. The ideas are always there. It's, writing is 10, 20, many things coming together at once. And then, the creative flow will just come out. You hope to have it, but if I don't have it, I'm happy, grateful, and I feel blessed that I have 8 books published out there, 105 languages. So I think I would stop here. I don't know if you have, maybe I should talk about a little bit about the role of the writer in a society.
Yes, if you like, you can go on. You can tell it here.
Okay. A writer, to me, is someone who tries to make sense out of a situation that doesn't really make sense. Life, we might want to think that everything makes sense, but in reality, it's not that true. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. When a writer sits down, I think what we try to do, I'm sure there are writers among you, is you see something that doesn't make sense, and you're trying to make sense out of it. And you see, as I said, the condition of women in northern Nigeria didn't make sense to me. So how do I write that so that someone, luckily, thanks to you, Dr. Patra, someone in Odisha will read it and make sense out of it. You see, being an illegal immigrant to many people it just doesn't make sense. How do you survive? But I wrote a love story, you know, predominantly mainly a love story, so that you can understand and then it will make sense to the reader. So the writer sometimes try to hold a mirror and say, look, like as I did in Amina, say, look, I am not against the government or the religious readers. I mean, you read it, you translated it, so you know, you knew what I was saying. I'm just trying to say that there are certain certain things in our culture that is holding us back. Certain things in our religion that we have completely misinterpreted in order to satisfy the vanity, the ego, the status, the stupidity of some members of the ruling class. You read the text, it says one thing, and you see, look at it straight, they're doing something else. And then you ask yourself, hang on, what's going on? So so that's why I wrote Amina. Amina is like holding a mirror so that Nigerians or poor people all over the world can see themselves, especially women, you know, to give women like a manifesto. Hang on, here is a book that finally says, I can do these things. I can liberate myself. And that's why I didn't bother to follow Western styles. I chose a style that empowers the woman. So I said, so Amina is like, hey, I present to the woman, here is something, read it, understand it, and go forward with the liberation struggle. Because you cannot continue to live like this. If you live like this, you'll be in anger. You'll be depressed. But if you read this, hopefully, you'll be able to understand how you get to where you are, and that anger will be channeled towards organization, and that organization will be hopefully make you understand where you are, and that will probably give you a better understanding of your society. So that's why I keep saying Amina is my seminal work, because it is in Amina that I said, this is where I stand, this is what I want to do. The illegal immigrant is important for me because it is also part of my life. A writer is in most cases, writers are in their stories, but more so in the illegal immigrant, because it's like 50% of my story. So many things did not happen to me. These are issues I pick on the streets or in conversations or in the newspaper that I brought together, crafted into this story. Some things, of course, that maybe a little bit happened to me and I amplified it to make a good set piece, or I reduced it just to fit a story. And as I said earlier, I wanted to write a story. I didn't want to write my story, because to write my story would be, I don't, it would be completely something different. And that's why I created Mustafa and his girlfriend to illustrate that. I have what explains all this success, if the readership, how, maybe I should just mention here that, so just recently somebody drew my attention to the fact that the world record holder of languages, most translated languages in the world, is Agatha Christie, and she has 103 languages, and that's why she's in the Guinness Book of Record or Guinness World Record. I don't know what they call it. I said I didn't know that. Actually, I was having a conversation with him, and I said I have 100 languages, but of course not all are out. I have 80 languages as we speak, 34 here, and the rest there. That's Samad's, that's shelf. So hopefully I will have about. There is a guy a publisher in Cameroon, translated this 13 languages, Samad into 13 languages, designed it to cover everything, and he was to publish it in March. And then Corona struck. So everything is there. I can, we're just waiting for life to come back to normal because he has to sell to schools to make money. If the schools don't open, he cannot sell. Anyway, I'm just hoping I will have had 95 on the shelf, but that's life. I don't count my chicks before they are hatched. That's why I said I have 80 here. So if everything works according to plan, in about a year, in about 6 months' time, I will be having about 103 languages. Many things contributed. I think I wouldn't be boasting if I said I worked hard. I read a lot. I spent substantial part of my hours reading. I try to have different perspectives, not just one, because what I think a lot of writers don't manage to penetrate different societies is that they have only one perspective, you see, and then they get stuck. So I think, but Amina is a statement, is a witness that when you have different perspectives, you'll be able to go places. And you have to learn to accept failures. I'm just trying to talk to students if they are there. You have to work hard. You have to read a lot. You have to also entertain different. You may not accept the other person's perspective, but try to entertain it because it can be helpful when it comes to trying to create your own story. Try to have clear goals in life. You see, well, so many things we do. A lot of kids these days. I notice a lot of kids these days is they don't have clear goals. They are muddled up. They have so many things. Accept failure. We cannot be winning all the time. And sometimes failure can be something that actually pushes you forward. One day I just woke up and I found out that I was an illegal immigrant. It did not weaken me. It strengthened me. And one day I went to work and I was told the company we are not trading anymore. Mohammed, you've been made redundant. I said, great. Now I have time to go and read and write. You see, so we have to see that some of these things can actually push you. So many things we consider failure are actually forces pushing us towards success. There's a reason why you fail, so you have to try harder and get it right. I did my best and to understand the publishing industry, and that's why I've been able to publish my own books, and so I think with all, I think I can stop here. I think we've reached the almost 1 hour mark, and then I'm ready for questions.
Yes. And this is such an amazing talk given by you, and just like a grip to our ears. You told so nicely and about your uphill journey of an immigrant, from illegal to legal immigrant in the blue-eyed London, so to say. And you talked about the process of writing, and you have made your statement, your manifesto for the emancipation of women. Now, our coordinator, IQAC, that is Internal Quality Assessment Cell of our college, will give her remarks, a few lines, and after that, we'll have the question and answer session. Our listeners, they have put up a few relevant questions. So now I request Madam Professor Suchitra Misra to tell a few lines by way of appreciating our endeavor. Actually, this is the endeavor of the Department of English, Kuchina College, and all my colleagues. But the inspiration behind is IQAC and Kuchina College as a whole. Now, Madam, please give your remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patra, for giving me or inviting me to speak few words Uh, First of all, at the outset of this webinar, I express and extend a very good evening to all the viewers and listeners who are linked to this webinar on Meet the Author program. Shubha Sandhya, Shubha Mastu. Namaskar. I once again welcome Mohammed Umar to Odisha and India. I am little bit confused actually, where to start and how to start, because your talk and your narration was so fascinating and stimulating also. So thank you very much for your elevating and illuminating speech, I would say. I, Ms. Suchitra Mishra, Coordinator IQAC, Kuchinda College, feel proud to say that my college has been organizing a series of national and international webinars for a past couple of months. IQAC has remained instrumental in organizing and encouraging these webinars. It gives me an immense pleasure to announce here that Mohammed Umar, who is popularly known as the author of the book Amina. I have read the book, the Odia version of book, as it is translated by Dr. Mohammed Umar Patra, who is a colleague of me. So I had the opportunity to read the book Amina. That book has been translated more than 40 languages, major languages, major Indian languages also. So the very book which is a very thought-provoking book. That book forced us to think regarding the status and position of women, not only in Indian context, but in the world, all over the world. I came across a poem in which a small girl asked, why we have to lower our tone? Why we have to lower our imagination being women? Why we have to lower our expectations? Why? Why we have to follow, not to recreate? From the very small story, which was written in Odia by the eminent writer Fakirmon Senapati, Revati, from Revati to Amina. The question comes to my mind that whether situations are changed or it still exists. And my question would be to our eminent writer, British novelist, Mohammed Umar. How did you see the Amina in the 21st century? How women are living today? How did your observation, what is your observation in the 21st century? How do you will explain it, I would say. Now, I will not take much time. I once again welcome you on behalf of IQAC and on behalf of Kuchinda College. I extend my deep sense of gratitude to you also for giving your consent, kind consent, to address our student, staff, and invitees. I extend my greetings to the Department of English for such a nice organization, and I extend my greetings the principal, Mr. Khageshwar Das, for his constant support and endeavor to organize such kind of webinars. I hope all our students will learn, certainly your talk, your fascinating life will enrich them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Now it's time for taking up a few questions that our listeners have asked. And before that, Mohammed, would you like to? I would like a question that you have talked about corruption in Nigeria. And when in the process of translating the book, I found that our system, our condition is very much the same. The way you see the education minister is purchasing a building at London,
Yeah.
appropriating the money, library money. So, do you think that things are improving, or that we human beings have a tendency of going down and down? And
Okay. Yeah, I think this is I will take it as a three-pronged question. I will link your question with the question that was asked earlier, which is the relevance of Amina, the question of corruption, and what is happening. Thank you. I want to thank her, first of all, for her very good remark. Very well, simple but difficult question. That's the relevance of Amina in the 21st century. When I wrote this book, and I finished writing it 32 years ago, Amina, I did not, of course, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, and you always hope that things will be better. It's human nature to hope. However, and to disappoint you, the situation in northern Nigeria is now worse for the women than it was 30-something years ago. As you probably heard about the Boko Haram, especially I come from where the Boko Haram are very active. How, the insecurity is worse, the oppression is worse, almost everything I talked about is now worse. So Amina is as relevant in the 21st century as it was last century. And I think it's not here. I'm just thinking, there was a remark I heard from Professor, it's not here, and another one from the writer, I think it's on my website, from the publishers, president of the Publishers Association in Singapore, who said that Amina will remain a classic text for a long time, because Amina is not a one country story, it's not a one decade story. It is something that, as long as there are a group of women and men, it's like a marker between the relationship between men and women in any society. Amina will be relevant. So I think Amina is still relevant. Amina will be relevant for quite a while. And coming to the question of corruption, you see, I'm very hesitant to say this, but I will say it. Man by nature is a greedy man. He's a greedy person. You see? So, and that's why you see over the years, philosophers and religions try to rein in. Because if you want to, because of the ego, because of vanity, because of all this, then it brings greed. So in order to, you want to get more than what you need. Because of fear, you are afraid of what's going to happen in the next 50 years, even though you know you might not live for the next 10 days, but something in us, innate in human being, want to grab more. And when there are no institutions and there are no, the philosophy is not there to explain that, look, you cannot take, even if you take more than what you want, you cannot eat it. You cannot, so, but the problem with the corruption in Nigeria is we just don't have the institutions to stop people from taking it, like the Minister for Education, as I explained. It's even worse now. We don't have the religious or cultural interpretation to say this thing is wrong. We glorify them. You go to Nigeria, as long as someone is rich, he gets traditional rulership, he gets all the professorship, he builds big houses, people gather around and they virtually worship him because he's rich. You see, so it is the way we relate to them that they, treat us. So unfortunately, until, as I said, something like a drastic revolution takes place and institutions are created to make sure they actually stop people from taking more than what they need. Unfortunately, man by nature will continue to plunder, the resources.
And a question from Sweta Rathor, and that question is related to the publication of Amina. She asks, according to internet, your book, Amina, was published in 2005. Can you throw some light on present conditions of women 15 years since then in Nigeria? Has there been any positive changes in Nigeria after your
Same
book?
Question. Okay, I have answered that, but I will just maybe elaborate. Maybe now coming again to elaborate. So if I said that the condition of women has worsened, Amina will now become more as something relevant in giving the women the tools and the platform, explaining the platform of how to organize and change the society. So what sort of world do I imagine post-pandemic in most African societies? This is just to generalize. I think we are going to see fundamental changes within the next 5, 10, 15 years. I'm speaking now as a political economist. I did international relations. at the University of London, which is not on my website. I studied law. So what I think will happen in the next, 2 or 3 decades, as it's already happening, but the pandemic will make it quicker. The balance of power will move to Asia. There will be, we will have a multipolar world before China decides to come and force one form of system on people or not. At the moment, multilateralism works for them. This shift from West to East will benefit Africa, although we are going to go through a very difficult, maybe couple of decades. To give you a perspective, since the 16th century, since the white man came physically face to face with Africa, it has been one form of exploitation or the other. It was slavery for 200 years. Then we had colonization. Then we had neocolonization. Okay, and almost 50 years to 60 years of what we call independent rule is not different. It's a neocolonial state. So for the first time in about 300 to 400 years, Western philosophy, Western economic institutions, almost everything Western is beginning to weaken in African societies. So the socioeconomic structures that were built and sustained in world imperialism over this 300 to 400 years, based on African power, resources, of course, Indian also. I'm just limiting myself. It's shifting. And in this period of shift, it will affect us greatly. Because although these were exploitative institutions, we had handrails at least. Now the handrails are giving way. That's why you would have a lot of confusion over a long period of time over, say, until we find another way, another thing to hold. So the condition of women, on the one hand, in what I will call conservative societies, where I come from, will worsen, because this is where the male power is stronger. There are parts of Nigeria where the condition of women is not that bad because they have completely different systems. So, but in conservative societies, the power of the man will be stronger, and hence he will use it more against the weaker sex, until we have a very strong national government that makes equality and on top of its agenda. Then but I see that happen in the age of the internet. We are going to so many things will change. AIs, when all these scientific and technological changes are taking place, we cannot hide. We have nowhere to hide anymore. So other than uplift people to reach that level. So there is hope, but I think we'll go through a very difficult period first.
And we have the questions related to the process of writing.
Okay.
Mr. Sasibhushan Rath, he asks from Bhubaneswar, and my colleague Prakash Chandra Patel, he also asked the question about the process of writing, and their questions reminds me of the American writer Raymond Federman. Once he told me that you have to be, out of necessity, you have to be unsocial if you are to be a writer. And while writing a book, Double or Nothing, his protagonist, he seals himself in a room with only noodles and tissue papers. And the question of Mr. Sasibhushan Rath is, writing 10 hours a day for 6 months, changing diet, routine, losing friends must be painful. Did the outcome give you more pleasure and less repentance? That is the question of Shashi Bhushan Rath.
Yes, he did. The outcome, you see, look at it as like a marathon runner who goes through all that pain, either in the sun or wherever. When they cross the line, you can see the smile on their faces. Or astronauts who go and perform some of the most difficult tasks out in the space. You see them when they return. The joy. So for me, 10 hours a day, 6 months, I completely cut myself up, changed my everything. But when I look at this book, I have the biggest smile on my face because the outcome completely wipes out all the pain, and gives me such a pleasure that, yes, I did it and I'm happy.
And Dr. Prakash Patel, he asks, sir, is it possible to earn a comfortable living as a first-time writer, devoting one's entire time, energy, and effort to simply...
No. Yes and no. The reason why I say for a writer like me, you have to be extremely, maybe one or two African writers you're going to hear in the newspaper were given advance of 50,000 or maybe more by one of these big publishing houses to write. But the average writer in the UK, even published by mainstream publisher before the pandemic, quite a lot of things will change after the pandemic, is not sustainable. Most of the writers I know work or do something else. They're either lecturers or they do many things. Like I work with children who have disabilities, for example, nearby school. This is because and it's not that I can't go back to big jobs, or it's because I want a job whereby in the morning I can wake up 5 o'clock and do whatever I want to do till 9 o'clock before I report to work. And after 4, I know I am free. If I'm working as a lecturer, I have books. If I'm a lecturer, I have books to read. I have papers to mark. I have meetings to attend. You know what I mean? So you have very little creative time. So to buy that creative time, you have to forgo so many things. It is almost, you have to be taken by a very big publishing house to live on your writing. Amazon will make you believe that you can live, but I have not met people like that. They have to promote some people, and it has to be on the bestseller list. You have to be traveling 24 hours. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult. But maybe there are people like that. I don't know.
And one of our students, a second-year student, Bodhisattva Patel, Miss Bodhisattva Patel, she asks, what do you think makes a good story? If I start writing, what are the elements that I should keep in mind, and how will I organize those in an effective way to make it a good one for the readers?
I am not going to pretend to be a literary critic or an advisor. I am just a writer. I'm just a person who picked the pen and wrote a story. And I'm not going to pretend that I know the secrets, because I don't. As I said, I was just blessed to be able to sit down and write. I always leave that to questions like this to specialists, people, and there are books out there. However, what I have learned over the years, and what Amina has taught me in particular, is keep it simple. Almost everything in life, keep it simple. If you keep it simple and accessible, and you're honest with yourself and honest with the story, then you will find somebody on the other end who will read it and appreciate it. A lot of stories don't go, because a lot of writers I have met, and I try to, or people who want to write, some of them come with either anger or arrogance, or people come in with something in them they want to impose. The other readers are not stupid. Dr. Patra, when I sent you Amina, we have never met. This is the first time we're meeting on the screen. But you read it and it touched you. And the same thing happened to hundreds of people all over the world. And when I sat down in a hostel in Moscow, 1986, July 1986, to write it, I never knew it would be like that. I was just honest to myself. I wanted to write a simple story that people can read. Just do it and let the story sell itself. A lot of people think, oh, I have these people in mind, and they will, or this publishing house in mind, I will send it to them. Now, what if you write it in accordance to how it will fit a publishing house and they reject it? Then you will be stranded. You see, just write what you want, and somehow the story will develop. And Abina developed her legs, and that's where she is all over the world. Just, you meet like-minded people out there.
I hope Bodhisattva will be satisfied and she will start writing. We have another question from my colleague, Miss Jagruti Bag. She asks, what are the difficulties for male writers to present a female's voice and her perception? This is the question.
It is very difficult. It's challenging. As you know, a lot of men have written very good books about women. Sorry, I can't remember the name of this French writer. I remember in the 19th century writer. It will come to me in a minute. Gorky, as I mentioned, wrote about. He wrote a novel called Mother, which is about the main character is woman. Ngugi wa Thiong'o wrote about not condition of women, but had a female woman being the main character. So a man writing with a woman main character like Gorky, it was a revolutionary situation, completely different. Not the women condition, but the women were the main characters. It's not new, it's challenging. But in my case, it's not just that the woman is the main character, but it actually addresses the condition of women. The difficulty is a lot of people, actually, some places, they didn't believe that a man can write such a thing. They thought a woman wrote it, but just put the name of a man, And then I had to tell them I wrote it. You just look at the society and so on and so on. So you have, it is difficult to, what I did was to sort of imagine how it would be like for going through that. And our power of imagination is limitless. So, it was difficult. But, once you have the creative outburst, you can do anything. I just created a character and gave her a voice, and and she ran away with it.
So this is the last question for the session, and I think you have already answered it. Mr. Abhin Kisan, he asks, how can we interpret the theme of Amina to reduce atrocities against women across the globe? How can we incorporate the theme of Amina?
Simple answer. Every
question.
woman in the world should read my book, and then the question will be solved. Once they read it, then they will find a way to, then I will make money.
And dear Mohammed, my heart goes out to you in gratefulness and gratitude that this has been such a tasking, such a marathon session, and you are almost exhausted. I can see that. I'm so grateful that you.
I can go for more, but before you finish, I just also want to take this opportunity to thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure and an honor to be with you all, to give me the platform, and I thank you. And I hope we will continue, in our conversation in one form or another.
And then we have the formal vote of thanks. And before that, I thank you from the core of my heart for keeping aside all your works and to be with us, for our students, for our members of the staff, and for all the listeners, viewers, all over Odisha and India who are listening to you. Now, I request my colleague, Dr. Prakash Chandra Patel, to present a formal vote of thanks. Mr. Patel, Dr. Patel. Just before, Dr. Patel, before you start your vote of thanks, one listener from Assam, she wants to ask a question to Mohammed Umar. Madam, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Jyoti Cassandra. Jyoti Cassandra. Madam, please ask.
Good evening, professors, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, resource person. I'm Jyoti from Tamil Nadu, and I would like to appreciate the whole crew of IQAC as well as the college which is organized this valuable webinar. Especially, I would like to thank the writer, Mr. Mohammed, who is from Africa and giving us the beautiful explanation regarding the marginalization of the women all over the across the globe. And especially, I would like to thank the college which has organized this webinar, because yesterday I doubted whether we'll be getting to my students. I'm working in a college. At the time, I called Professor Amia Patra, I think. If it is wrong, kindly forgive me. And Suchit ma'am. Immediately, they called me, they texted me, and they told me to participate, and they clarified my doubt. This is a note of appreciation to the college, especially the IQAC cell, as well as to the writer who wrote about the women as well as the illegal immigrant. So far, I didn't get a chance to go through those books, professors, as well as the writer. This time, I'll try to get Dr. Mohammad's Amia book, and I will be reading that. Thank you very much for giving me the chance from Tamil Nadu, especially Coimbatore district, Pollachi, to share my views about your webinar. Thank you, organizer, and thank you, professor.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you. Now, I request Dr. Prakash Chandra Patel to present his formal vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening first to Mohammed Umar sirs and all the participants in the virtual meet. It's certainly a matter of pleasure and pride on my part to extend vote of thanks. And today it is really a marvelous talk, and also it is a matter of real excitement and enthusiasm to listen to the first-hand experience of the author, publisher, playwright, a multifaceted personality. And also today we listen to the journey of an author as to how difficult it is, and how in the end, if successful, the pleasure, the enthusiasm that one can get is certainly worth the lot. And it is beyond our expectations to meet an author, even if it's in the virtual meet, and the experience, the trials and tribulations, the struggles that the author has to face. And thank you so much, sir. your speech was marvelous. The way you answered all the queries with patience, with a smiling face, with enthusiasm and excitement is really exciting, is really a beyond our expectations, and I appreciate your presence. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, it is also the virtual meet was possible with the thoroughgoing support of our principal professor Khageshwar Das. He has been always supported the cause of the academic pursuit from the very beginning, even if there was no pandemic situations. Always he was talking about initiating seminars, and because of his support, encouragement, and his own initiative, our college has initiated a number of webinars in different subjects. So thank you so much, sir. Um, Now I like to extend my thanks to Dr. Amir Patra, Associate Professors in the Department of English, because of his wholehearted support for the cause of such seminar. We managed to have an international seminar. We managed to meet an author, a great erudite, a authorial presence in the virtual meet. Thank you, sir, so much. Because of your effort, we could manage to have an international webinar in our college. Now, I like to extend my thanks to all my colleagues of the Department of English, Mr. Mr. Roshan Kullu. He has been instrumental in extending technical support for all the webinars in the institutions, and he has been quite supportive on every occasions. Now I like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Ms. Jagruti Wagh, the member of our department. She has been also quite cordial in doing every sort of responsibilities associated with the webinar. I like to express my gratitude to Ms. Suchitra Mishra, the head of the IQAC cell, for doing all sorts of necessary jobs for the launching of this webinar. I also thank all the members of the IQAC cell. Now I like extend my vote of thanks to Ms. Sasmita Means and Ms. Hemsila Mazi. They have been doing their jobs in a smooth way for the proper coordinating this webinar, for arranging all the questions, doing all the necessary jobs for the proper functionings of this webinar. I like to extend my heartwarming, heartfelt thanks to all the participants, my friends, my colleagues, my students from this college, and the students from other institutions. Because of their presence, this webinar could have been possible. Because of their presence, it was quite exciting. I thank them from the very core of my heart. In the end, I extend my thankful note, my heartfelt thanks to all my colleagues of Kuchinda College and everyone associated with the proper, smooth conduct of this webinar. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Once again, I thank the main protagonist, I will say the main character of this webinar, Mohammed Umar sir. Sir, it's your presence that has galvanized the entire participants, entire institutions into actions to listening to your enthusiastic, exciting speech. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Dear Mohammed, now
Ah.
as all good things must come to an end, we have come to the end of this webinar, and it's time to say you goodbye from